Okay. Hi, everyone. It's not every day that you make a talk about a toolkit and you do your talk right after the creator of said toolkit that gives a presentation, but here goes nothing. Can I get a quick show of hands of anybody that's using Tuist today in their projects, either professionally or in your projects? Okay, super. I was expecting a lot more hands, so that's great to hear. Despite the color of the talk slides, the title, and the Tuya sticker that I have on my laptop, I am not paid in any way to advocate for Tuyas. I just want to share a really great story about how transformative it was for me. So, hi, I'm Kelvin, and I'm a lead mobile engineer at Levin and Rigner. I've been there for the last 6 months. We're an agency based out of Brooklyn, and we're working on lots of cool stuff, including for me, what's very new in the last 6 months is working in spatial. So what I actually want to do is go back 2 years ago and tell you about a little story. Whenever I worked for a consultancy based out of Belfast called Instill. And one day I was asked if I could be, as a tech lead, I was asked if I could lead a project for a client based out of Texas who provide paramedic software. So paramedics rock up and they need to capture patient data, capture information about a scene. And they had an app called EHR that looks like this. It's a Windows-based app. It has 9 tabs. Does anybody know what happens if you put 9 tabs on an iPad? You get 8, and you get the 3 dots that when you tap, you get the ninth. So we had a very interesting UX challenge because we were asked to build it greenfield. And I was asked to build a greenfield and to lead what was started as a small and then led up to a team of about 8 or 9 engineers. And very quickly, whenever you're in this position, you think about all the mistakes that maybe you've seen. And certainly in the projects that I've picked up over my career, where as a consultancy, you come in, you improve things for companies, and you see a lot of interesting design decisions and implementations of such and technology choices, and you think that you're going to do it better. That's the naive attitude that I had about the actual implementation itself. And we ended up with something like this. This is the iPad equivalent. My favorite compliment I got about this was an old manager that said, Kelvin, you've built a settings app because it just looks so basic and it doesn't really have much identity. And I love this compliment because it wasn't meant as one. What I take from that is from the legends that I work with across engineering, design, product, and quality assurance, is that we're able to distill such a complex domain and break it down to something that anybody could use. But it gets better because we actually had Apple and Battersea giving us some guidance. And with a few little changes here and there, not very much, honestly, we were able to get a beautiful iPhone app as well, which was not part of what we were originally asked to do. And even better, because paramedics deserve the best, we're able to bring a lovely dark mode experience in there as well. And that was great. But what I want to share is the frustrations and the stress and the difficulties that we had as a team, that certainly I had as a tech lead. My first time I get to think all the tech decisions, I never once thought about this thing, the Xcode project format, and all the challenges that it would lead for whenever your team starts out very small and then it very quickly starts to grow. And thankfully, Pedro, you've went into the really tough things that I don't really understand, if I'm being truly honest. I just know that whenever you look in your Xcode project, you see something like this, and you go in a little bit further and you see this very confusing mess of indices of all the file types that you add. And if I'm adding stuff and you're adding stuff, then it's going to be a really bad time. We all know this if we've ever worked with multiple folks on an Xcode project. So it's a source of pain, a really bad source of pain. And I think back to, it was coming up to Christmas this one year, and the team had scaled up and we were really enthusiastic about the work they're doing, because it's not often that you actually get to work on a greenfield project. It's not often that you get that trust and that opportunity and to build something that's going to be so impactful, because getting this right really transforms the opportunities and the work that paramedics do, and that leads to better patient outcomes. But we were losing all of our enthusiasm because we just had a hell of merge conflicts. And the reason for that, as Pedro rightly called out, is that it's not designed for modularity. It's very implicit, it's very hard to understand, and it's frequent and full of conflicts. So Our Bitbucket looked like this. Everybody wanted their turn to merge. Whenever somebody's build went green, it's like, get in there, get your merge in, and then it's the next person's problem. And that's a truly awful developer experience, because coming into the project and thinking about all the decisions, all the technical frameworks that we would use, the databases and such, I never once considered this to be a possibility, because my experience was always in very small teams where with some Git unify attributes, we're able to kind of get around it. But the other part of the problem was that we were using Xcode Cloud, because it was this wonderful thing where we didn't have to go into sort of a Jenkins setup that I have a bit of stress about or trauma about from years ago. We could just get, the idea was that all of that CI stuff, all that build, test, deploy, that gets out of the way, and we can focus on building a really great experience. But it's really slow, because all those Intel blades, all those servers that you can no longer actually buy, Apple have decided to keep them. And yes, Xcode Cloud is very cheap, but it's also very painful. So, and the fact was that we had this big announcement that the client wanted to do. They wanted to show all of their customers in the United States and Canada that we're listening to your feedback and we're going to have this iOS experience. But we were hesitant because we had this problem. And then we found Tuist. We were looking at how do other people solve this problem, the severe Git merge conflicts, the implicit project configurations. And we found Tuist after evaluating a few variants that use JSON and YAML to define a project structure. And the great thing about Tuist is because it is itself a way to define your project for your Swift DSL. You generate using a CLI, and that's really it. That's all we had to do. It looks like something like this. You open up your project. We have our target, and we have a target with all the destinations, the bundle ID, where all the sources live, and then the same for accompanying test target. So as soon as you open a project, and because you're working in Swift and Xcode, you can very quickly start to grasp the context of what you're working in. Because, as the folks at Tuist have said, it should own the complexity and expose a simple, safe, and what's key for me, enjoyable interface. Because the enthusiasm that we had, we were able to start and claw that back, because it's explicit, because there's nothing explicit or very little explicit about the current vanilla Xcode experience. So the CLI command, Tuist generate, it's looking at because it knows how you define your project, it knows all of your configuration, all of your dependencies, it can be deterministic in its output. For me and for everybody in the team, we're going to get the same experience. So we run Tuist generate. One thing, a lot of us didn't use the CLI much. We didn't use terminal much. We liked our GUI applications for Git and such. So there's a little bit of using the CLI, but actually that wasn't a problem at all. And we get this rich deterministic output every single time. And the other thing, and Pedro, whenever you're going through and adding those build flags, for me, over the years of working Xcode, anytime I see this and have to go into this, I start to panic because I have no idea what I'm going to do. But what I am sure about is I'm going to break something. And because I'm maybe a bit messy with Git and the Xcode file format, I'm going to leave it in a pretty tragic state. So better get ready to just nuke the whole thing and reclone it. But that's where Tuist Edit comes in as a great thing, because it understands that files that you set up with the Tuist schema, and you're able to go through and see an overview. And you can see all these features that I get into, but the root project itself, ours at the time, maybe, yeah, a year and a half ago, looked like something like this. So let me break it down so you can actually see it a little bit closer. So the project itself, automatic scheme options about code coverage, the testing options, and specific configurations can all be spelled out and be deterministic. The configuration is just around any XC configs, so there's a bit of portability if you've already established those. And then the target itself, an example here of a pre-run script that runs before the build, so we could lint our code and have that deterministic cleanliness that we were looking for and maximize our developer experience. To all of our dependencies. At the top, external dependencies that we've told Tuist about, like Realm, Mockable, Factory as such, to something like our projects, driver license kit, file system kit. If you look these up, you can't find them, because one of the transformative things about Tuist for me, a boss battle in mobile app development, both on Android and iOS, the face of years, is I could never get extracting features out into their own dependencies. I could never crack that until this. And we're actually, because it's Swift code, we're able to build some nice extensions. So it's very easy for anybody in the team, regardless of their experience, to come in and say, I want to define another dependency, so a sync kit, something that encapsulates the complexity of synchronization to a server, and we can define external dependencies that we need. I actually don't think you need to do this, but I just put Swift data in here at the time. Turns out we didn't actually end up using it, but I thought it's great as a developer to come in and read, hang on, they're using Swift data here, so I can actually get an idea of what to expect as it come in. And these quotes are from the team at the time whenever the folks at Tuist were asking for some quotes about saving a lot of time. You're not fixing the project file every time you pull main. The whole no-git conflicts with the project file is a very nice addition. Being able to make small PRs and not have to fix configs is lovely. And the final one from me, Tuist Cloud improved my clean build times by 42%. So you could say the team was ecstatic because we could get that excitement back and we were actually able to deliver a fantastic experience, because I don't know how we would do it otherwise. And here's a little fun meme one of the guys in the team made. A fun fact, whenever I was the one that created the EHR project, and I use uppercasing, but sometimes certain developers, it would resolve to lowercase for them, and we never figured out why. And that was another thing that Tuist was able to fix for us as well. But it doesn't stop there. We actually went a little bit further and engaged with the folks at Tuist, at the time called Tuist Cloud, but now it's just under the umbrella of Tuist. This idea of caching, because Tuist, we've told Tuist about our project, our dependencies, and how we're getting them. So it understands that structure that's going to be able to cache that and take a hash of all our dependencies. And Pedro, maybe this is an old school throwback for you, because what you showed and what you folks have done today is just, really, really nice. But this is the experience that we had, being able to understand our local, remote, and misses on the cache. And you could see whenever our cache hit rate was very consistently high as we adopted it through that year, which was great because it mitigated the fact that we didn't want to step off Xcode Cloud. We didn't want to take that time away from actually building the product itself. So we can mitigate, not fix, but mitigate that. But critically for developers, we saw the benefit both locally and on CI. An example of this, an old screenshot at the time, you can see for dependencies, it takes nearly a minute and a half to resolve those at that point before it goes on to resolving and compiling our actual app code itself. So taking a total of about 4 minutes and 13 seconds. And then just by caching and doing nothing else, we're able to bring that down to a total of 2 minutes and 25. And the actual dependencies themselves just takes about a couple of seconds to resolve. So that was, 30 to 40% improvement. And we didn't have to spend time tweaking the CI. We didn't have to do anything. We just engage with the folks at Tuist, and we just use a little command and automate that ourselves. Then came DC24 and the buildable folders, as Pedro also showed, the minimizing the project file changes and avoid version control conflicts with buildable folder references. That to me was good. It's good to see Apple considering the developer experience a little bit more, but it's not something that made me think, okay, let's just abandon all this Tuist stuff. Because this is something I found in the last week from a SDK sample from a particular company example I've been looking at. And I haven't made this a Tuist, I haven't migrated this to Tuist, but it's just my breakpoints, fair enough. But I don't know what the XC user state is, but I just know in anything that I work with in Tuist and any of the projects that define today, I never see something like this. And this is actually after I get reset hard. So I don't know why it's there. I just know this is why I need Tuist in my lifestyle, because it illustrates, from contrasting that example of the paramedic app to the work I do now in an agency, where every week I could be working across multiple projects. I could be working across different prototypes and different client projects, which is quite a change. Having the Tuist project format itself is a form of documentation, much like your code. So I can go in and understand and help my team members understand what the expectations of a certain project are for its dependencies, its structure, or anything little specific that we need to do. And also the behavior is deterministic. We can just get right in there and actually just start building. And that's an example now of I'm doing a lot of work in spatial now, and I don't have to compromise with merge conflicts as we're bringing across the team. And indeed, whenever we're building now, we're recently announced as partners along with Disney, Logitech, and Microsoft to build with the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, which is really exciting. Again, all these things, and we're not in big, massive teams. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to be choosing Tuist because of all the benefits that it gives me, as I've highlighted. And was it all perfect? Was it absolutely amazing experience throughout? That was not the case, because the migration itself, I didn't understand the Xcode project format. I would say I still don't understand it. I just know that I want to get my code together. I want to adopt the latest frameworks, and I want to solve the problems for my clients and build great experiences. So doing the migration at the time was really, really hard because I didn't understand those things. And I also had you can't really say to clients, I need more time because I'm dealing with my Xcode project format. That's not something a client wants to hear. But thankfully, things are so much better now because there's a wealth of fantastic documentation from those folks that would solve the problem really quickly for us and help educate folks. Whether you're versed in iOS or just coming into it relatively new, it's a great place to learn how to solve those things. And the last thing, the takeaway that I want to share with you folks is community. I've joined a lot of Slacks over the years, especially prior to starting the project, trying to find a source of folks that I engage with. We're adopting Swift UI or Swift data, and where can we learn and talk with those outside of something like X, which isn't a great place to communicate a lot of the time. And I just want to stress that the Tuist Slack is the liveliest place. It's somewhere that you can go and just engage in the random channels or see what the folks those folks are doing in general, and really get support and peace of mind, especially whenever you're like me, tasked with something dramatic like building a greenfield project and taking the whole team through and making sure that's a great experience. So thank you very much for your time. And I know I had questions on here, but I think we're doing those at the end.